So, friends, we've seen a lot. I'm talking about the Ukrainian public, but we've never seen anything like this before. And the most upsetting part of the story is that the capture by a Russian sabotage and reconnaissance group of a control observation post, presumably belonging to a territorial defense battalion in an open field, is not a fake. It's a true story. This is what happened, and it's what we need to keep talking about. If you missed it, here's a clip from the video, which is absolutely publicly available and is now being spread across all Telegram channels, both official and unofficial, of the Russian Federation. And of course, it has already been. Many of our military personnel, as well as military journalists, have already watched it and managed to give their assessment,
where they carried out reconstruction and subsequently took actions to defend Huliaipole and advance towards it. The battalion chief of staff's workplace. Here too, the stamps they left behind remain. Film it. Completely. Folders with information also signed, and everything is stamped. The phones are still working. Here they have a workstation for observers, where observers work with a UAV drone. The adjusted kamikaze drones and artillery.
Basically, that's the gist of it, and that's the video. It's quite long, you can find and watch it separately, but look, more than a day has passed since this video was made public. And there's only been one official comment from the Ukrainian Defense Forces, specifically from Operational Command South. It looks like this, and it appeared this morning. Vlad Voloshin comments, spokesperson for Operational Command South. Regarding this incident, representatives of the relevant competent authorities are conducting a detailed investigation to determine the causes and circumstances that led to such an event, and in general, whether it actually took place at all. Only after that will information be made public. In addition, a case will be opened by law enforcement agencies. Also, based on the results of the investigation, the actions of each official involved in these events will be evaluated. No one will hide anything. My personal assessment is not enough in this case. That's not enough because right now there's a storm of criticism. It's extraordinary, basically, and concerns the systemic nature of such things. Huliaipole is a gray zone today, as you know. In this rather large city, there are both Ukrainian military and Russian sabotage and reconnaissance groups. In fact, everything there is happening in a mixed-up way. And everyone who has now watched this video, according to the strength of their own authority, is giving their assessment of these events. As I already mentioned, these are both journalists and military personnel. We can start, for example, with the military. Krotevych, let me enlarge his post now, which he made based on his own experience. You know, Azov, he was in the Azov headquarters, and he shares his experience about how technical equipment and documents are destroyed or not destroyed when a control observation post or the headquarters of a brigade or battalion needs to be relocated or abandoned for some reason. And so he describes a situation where he personally ordered his subordinates to burn everything completely. And this order was only formally carried out and nothing was actually burned. Then it all had to be fixed on the go only because Krotevych personally checked the situation. This is what he writes about. He writes that the task was not completed, and as a result, all the documentation remained intact. Some geniuses set a couple of desks on fire and left, after which, of course, the fires went out. In the video, my driver and I are burning all the documentation. There's also another video on his page, Yes, and property, including generators, chainsaws, and so on. Unfortunately, not everyone understands even the most basic things. Still, I hope other brigades will draw conclusions and establish a standard operating procedure for all their headquarters. You don't need to wait for instructions from the general staff to do this. Of course, the responsibility for this particular incident should lie with the chief of staff of the unit, but they come up with something like appointing someone responsible. The responsible officer who messed up, well, he gets a reprimand. In a system where the commander-in-chief never takes responsibility for failures, those who are actually supposed to be held accountable will never be the ones blamed. It's like with lying. You can't demand that commanders tell the truth if everyone around them is lying. That's Bohdan Krotevych's opinion, but that's not all. The main complaint about this video information that appeared is, why are the phones lying on chargers? Why are the laptops turned on? And so on and so forth. Isn't this actually some kind of fake story, or is it really a fake story? Another thing that draws attention is that there are no chevrons or identifying marks on the Russians' uniforms. In other words, is this real? An event that actually happened? As of now, we know roughly that this is basically how it was. The control observation post was abandoned. Don't expect everything right away. I'll report the latest details as they come, but let's go through things step by step. So all these questions are also being discussed by Yulia Karyenko. Kiryenko is a military journalist who works close to the front line. And of course, she is competent to speak about certain things. Here is her post. If they had simply fled, they probably would have taken their belongings and laptops with them. The Russian soldiers have no identification marks on them, which is also strange. But what is also striking is the silence from the military group responsible for this section of the front, or the Territorial Defense forces, which still haven't come forward to explain what actually happened at the command post. I showed you the only comment from Voloshin. We still haven't seen any statement from the Territorial Defense forces. What have we managed to find out? First, there really is a 1st Battalion of the 106th Territorial Defense Brigade, which until August was the 74th Battalion of the 102nd Brigade. And this explains the 102nd Brigade flag seen in the Russian video. And did you see it there? You could also see the facial recognition software on the laptop screen. Then, due to reorganization, it was transferred under the command of the 106th. Second, the situation in Huliaipole is indeed critical. The defense forces are holding the southern part of the city. There is also a sharper assessment from Sternenko, for example, who writes, "This kind of event is yet another loud symptom. A symptom of a systemic crisis in the military. You can't leave the system in its current state, otherwise, tomorrow the enemy will be breaking through not just to a tactical depth, but to an operational tactical one. Simply put, the enemy will be advancing dozens of kilometers deep into our defenses. Lies and the collapse of the command system are destroying our army." By the way, when you say "from the word of a guy," that's a hint at Mr. Manko, who is in charge of our air assault forces. Look, well, so this assessment, although it's the most emotional, is the one I agree with the least, because right now the details are still being clarified. What actually happened, and are there really representatives there? Are there servicemen from this battalion there? Did they just suddenly and inexplicably up and run away somewhere, vanishing without a trace? This is a significant claim, as stated by a respected journalist we have on our team, another prominent military journalist, specifically named Diana Butsko, who has been diligently covering these events. You can find her on Facebook. It's a truly massive and extensive long read. This particular piece is from a dedicated journalist from Hromadske who meticulously spoke with one of the brave servicemen deeply involved in the complex and challenging situation concerning the command post in the area of Huliaipole. I'll just quote. Just one excerpt, because the post is quite long and describes in principle this situation that unfortunately also led to losses among the servicemen. Regarding the equipment that was left behind, the one shown in the video, our journalist is asking a person who is familiar with and knows this situation from the inside. On the devices that were left at the headquarters, was there any classified information? I'm not ready to say what was there. I took all my apps with Krotevych with me. I burned 2 tablets that had my messengers and the chats we used to communicate with adjacent units, because I understood that I wouldn't be able to carry them out since the road was long and difficult. It was probably just panic. The basement was supposed to be completely collapsed. Gasoline was prepared and someone just didn't set it on fire. All the valuable information that could have been about the position is no longer relevant. That's all. Next question. After this situation, did the brigade or corps command contact you? No, they did not contact me. Since yesterday, counterintelligence has already been checking us. Yesterday, the battalion commander was suspended. The guys who left the position are being offered to be immediately transferred to the 225th Separate Assault Regiment. Third question. At the moment when this happened, how far was your headquarters from the line of contact? The answer is simply incredible. 700 meters. Can you imagine? This is exactly what people mean when they talk about a systemic problem, when they talk about the need to reform the Territorial Defense forces, which are part of the armed forces of Ukraine. This is exactly what people mean when they talk about commanders lying, when they talk about, for some reason, the desire to hold on to the command post until the very end. 700 meters. If that's true, it's the only word I have for this is a bad one. They said it couldn't be moved. I witnessed a situation when someone from the brigade called and yelled like, "You're lying that you're out in the open field. Let's send a drone. It'll film you. You have to wave your hand to prove you're really there." That was exactly the day after we waved our hands. That's the kind of situation that happened. This is what a serviceman found by Diana Butsko says. And Diana Butsko claims that this serviceman was directly involved. Now let's hear the assessment from military analysts. Here's their assessment. DeepState writes the following. This situation with the command post happened because it was stormed by the enemy around December 18th. Why there were so many officers at the command post, including the company commander, is unknown. One of the company commanders died after the assault because they didn't manage to get him to the stabilization point in time. There's also a message about this in Diana's post. This is now confirmed by two sources. Obviously, after our withdrawal, the enemy entered and filmed this so-called unboxing. This video confirms the chaos and the problems in the management of the territorial defense units, which require immediate attention from the higher military command for further reformatting, reform, and optimization. So what is happening right now at this very moment in Huliaipole? Here's another video. Please take a look. Here we see a Russian soldier who has unfolded a rag, some kind of his own rag. And here, as you can see, there is a wider shot. It's not hard to do a simple manipulation to try switching to a map that shows the terrain and get something similar. So, in other words, the crucial confirmation that this location is indeed accurately geolocated. This specific point is the very center of the Ukrainian town of Huliaipole. But in actual fact, it doesn't truly or significantly mean anything substantial. Huliaipole, at this present moment today, it is unfortunately a contested gray zone. Next, we need to draw conclusions, we need to do some work, and we need to figure out why our command post is located 700 meters away. And finally, to hear proper communication. Let me draw your attention to this once again. We are establishing the causes, the prerequisites, and so on. Only after that will the information be made public. No. The pertinent information should have already been publicly disclosed because, as you know, the official communication from the army spokespersons is already being systematically replaced by pervasive Russian propaganda, which prominently shows carefully edited videos of how Ukrainian soldiers, heroes, in their opinion and according to their interpretation, are simply fleeing. But that is, of course, not true. That's the issue. It's not about criticizing Sternenko or DeepState or anyone else. It's about not giving a reason, about not lowering motivation, by allowing certain events to be interpreted by the enemy.